By the mid-19th century, the East India Company transformed into a sovereign power. It governed millions and commanded a military force rivaling the professional armies of Europe. British administrators saw their position as an unshakable reality. To them, the empire was stable, profitable, and permanent, a system so well established it appeared beyond challenge. But history often exposes weaknesses invisible to those in power. Beneath this confidence, a dangerous level of resentment spread through every layer of Indian society. The company had become so insulated by its own success that it failed to recognize the systemic failures brewing within its own borders. Its officials were governing a population they no longer understood. The friction began with livelihoods. Rapid economic changes and new policies disrupted traditional markets, creating profound uncertainty for local communities and workers. Simultaneously, the company systematically stripped regional leaders of their authority. Ancient territories were absorbed into British systems, leaving traditional rulers marginalized and their subjects disenfranchised. This revealed a critical flaw in the colonial structure: the exercise of absolute power without any regard for the traditions or beliefs of the governed. By 1857, decades of cultural ignorance and economic pressure turned the subcontinent into a powder keg. All that remained was for a single event to provide the spark. That spark appeared in 1857 with a new rifle. To load it, soldiers had to bite a greased paper cartridge. Rumors spread that the grease contained cow and pig fat. For Hindu and Muslim troops, biting this violated their most sacred religious laws. Troops viewed the equipment as a deliberate attack on their religious identity. The rumor's accuracy mattered less than the deep-seated distrust it confirmed. Defiance turned into open resistance. Military units across the region refused orders, turned their weapons against their commanders, and abandoned their posts. The unrest spilled out of the barracks and into the streets. Civilians, former rulers, and marginalized communities joined the fight, transforming a military mutiny into a widespread uprising against foreign rule. The British failure to respect local tradition had instantly turned a localized equipment dispute into a war for imperial survival. As the rebellion expanded, the illusion of British security evaporated. For the first time in decades, imperial officials realized their control was not guaranteed. The military response was uncompromising. The British launched a campaign of severe reprisals and public executions, aiming to suppress the population through overwhelming force. Ordinary families found themselves trapped in the chaos. Entire towns were caught in the crossfire between rebel forces and an empire determined to discourage any future challenges to its power. Despite its scale, the rebellion lacked a unified leadership. Disjointed regional strategies eventually collapsed under the weight of organized British reinforcements and superior resources. The empire restored order through devastating violence, but the sheer brutality of their reaction proved that their sense of invincibility was gone. The uprising effectively ended the East India Company. British leaders recognized that a private corporation could no longer be trusted with the governance of such a volatile territory. Direct authority passed to the British Crown, signaling the start of the Raj. The institution that had conquered India was stripped of its power. Even with this new centralized control, the relationship between ruler and subject was damaged. Trust was replaced by a lingering suspicion that no administrative change could easily erase. The company had survived the battlefield, but its own arrogance and inability to understand the people it governed led to its political destruction. The uprising left behind an ideological legacy that would outlast the fighting. It proved that British power could be challenged, shattering the myth that foreign rule was an inevitable part of the future. Over the following decades, the memory of resistance coalesced into a broader national consciousness, as different groups found common ground in their shared struggle. The events of 1857 failed to achieve immediate independence, but they introduced the possibility of mass resistance, a precedent that would serve as the starting point for the long movement toward a free India.